Enter the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog, the Mexico Open at Vedanta World. It's like Mace's Harlem World, Tambo. That's what we're doing in Mexico this week. We got DraftKings picks, the final bets, the weather, ownership, one and done, everything you need to know before this tournament gets started. But you were just telling me something very interesting right before we came on air. So hit me with it. I like this take.
Yeah, I'll go to it. Real quick take. Mace Harlem World, first CD I ever owned, by the way. The CDs going back in the day and dating it. But yeah, I think this is an interesting topic, and I discussed a little bit yesterday. I wanted to discuss it with you, but I've kind of forgotten. It's carried over year. Definitely think it's prevalent from early on. What we've seen so far is everyone coming over from NFL has a bit of money in the tank. Like everyone's bankroll is filled up to start the season. They're ready to go. Golf is here. I do feel like the content of all the free shows and everything that's out there is definitely playing a bigger role in what we're seeing versus 3-4 months into the season. You see a lot more people that are playing that have projection sites or optimizers with data and ownership and all of that, where those numbers come through. And a prime example would be last week with Victor Hovland. Remember, I told you, and that's why I thought, remember I said this lineup will be so duped. I thought everyone was going to go to that lineup. All the projection sites had Minwoo and McNeely and all those guys super pumped up as great plays. Some people played it that way, and then others played Victor Hovland at whatever it was, almost 20% ownership, because he was too cheap for the price. So I think a lot more people are listening to the content, rolling the same guys, and that can be an advantage, especially on a week like this where it feels like one of those quote-unquote lazy weeks that I've talked about in the past, Pat.
I agree with you. This could be a lazy week because I don't know how much people are really feeling the Mexico Open, especially after the last 4 tournaments that we had in a really good Sunday that was at Torrey Pines with all the big names, and it came down to the wire, and now people are like, all right, there's like 3 guys from that field playing this week, at least that were in contention. So maybe they will. The problem for me is when I'm looking at the entire pricing list, when I looked at the odds boards initially, they're all kind of the same guy. So I don't know exactly who's going to drop all the ownership. I do think that Akshay is better than everyone else in this field. The odds dictate that. The price dictates that. But after we go to the next level, the next 20 guys are basically the same. It seems like everyone likes Alex Smalley.
Agreed. And one thing I'll add on to that actually ties into my original statement and what you just said is if you go back to the Scotty Scheffler 60% ownership week, where we kind of assumed he's well over 30. Then by the time we got closer, we're like, well, wait a minute, this guy's going to be well over 40. No one really predicted 60, but by the time we got closer to lock, 50 was at least on people's minds. He ended up getting to 60. The thing about that week versus last week that was different was the price wasn't that much more. Then who came next? And also you had other guys to get to. You nailed that for this one, Pat, because Akshay is 10-7, Kitayama 10-2, Rasmus 10-1. It might just be a perfect storm. And like you said, because everybody else is so similar, I should say, down below, people can easily find that, $600, $500 to be able to move up to Akshay. So I could see his ownership getting really boosted just based off of that.
I'll have the complete cheat sheet with everything that you need to know coming out on Wednesday evening. It's part of the Mayo Media free newsletter. Sub to that in the description right now, free on Substack. And I will release that cheat sheet on Twitter under the articles tab as well. If you see it on Twitter, even if you don't read it, share it around, give it a like, help us boost it in the algorithm. That would be very nice. And I would thank you for that if you do it. I don't think I'll personally thank you, but I'll be thank you in advance right now for helping me out in that regard. Additionally, Tambo, I'm giving away a free annual sub to fantasynational.com. Now, if you want to get in on fantasynational.com, it's fantasynational.com/Mayo to get yourself 20% off. That's where I do all my research show. You can watch those on Sundays. I'll even have one while being on vacation next week, Tambo. I don't know if we're going to be doing this show.
That's standard Pat Mayo for you right there. I'm going on vacation. I'm still doing all my shit, but I'm on vacation. That's you.
I am actually recording it later today, so I don't know what the entire field is going to be, but I have all the big names who I think that are going to be committed, but it doesn't really matter. I'll show you what I'm doing on the site. Then you can use Fantasy National in order to go do the research that you want. After the show is done, the live chat is going on right now because we are live every single Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern time on Mayo Media Network and streaming on X. If you ever want to ask us questions, we get to those at the end after we build some DraftKings lineups. But after the fact, in the comment section of the YouTube video or on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You do them all, you get triple the amount of stuff in here. Just give me who your favorite play is below $7,000 this week. And that will just get you in the draw. And I'll probably be doing it in 2 weeks' time because I'm away next week. I'll be doing the draws all week next week. So for Bay Hill, when I get back, I'll be announcing a winner of that. Then you'll have like a month. You can use it for Masters and for players, and it'll be awesome. All right, fantasynational.com/Mayo. And you get access to the amazing leaderboard app, which I was tweeting out over the weekend. People couldn't believe how fast it was in real time and how non-stressful it was, like the stupid PGA Tour app. Weather for the week, it's pretty good. It's going to get up to 90 degrees. It's pretty hot.
Yeah, it looks like, it gets a little hotter Friday afternoon than Thursday afternoon. I don't think it's really going to matter too much. But like you said, when you got the field strength, quote unquote strength, maybe the reverse of that, of this field, it's kind of like, you're never going to know who's going to come through in that. I think that's kind of the other thing too, Pat, is the Akshay factor, which ties into this, is when we used to have Rahm here, he was the class of the field. Like it was like he was 80% to top 20 the thing, and no one was even close after him. Do you have Akshay sort of in that same range, or how do you see it? Because I don't think it's anywhere near that type of setup for me.
No, I think that he's the most skilled player in this field. I think he's better than everyone else in this field, but it's not like having Rahm or even the year that Finau won when Akshay, I believe, came 4th or 5th that year, 2 years ago. And just as note, this is the 4th year of this tournament. It is only the 2nd time it is being played in this time slot. The first 2 years, it was played in May when it was even hotter out. So I don't know how that affects everything, but this is the 2nd year in a row. It's before the Cognizant, before the Florida Swing. It was moved on the schedule. But when Finau was a part of that run, that's when Finau was winning tournaments, and he was like a top 10 player in the world. Akshay is close to that, but he also doesn't possess the same skill set as those guys. Like Akshay is good off the tee, but it's mainly because of his accuracy. He's good with his long irons. He's good at putting on past palom and slow greens. He's deadly with his irons in his hand, but he is not a masher like we have seen the other 3 winners of this event be.
Yeah, and I think it's like, to me, it looks like a guy that we know is very likely to make the cut. So that solves your first problem. You're looking for him to make the cut for you, but you need a lot more than that, right? There's going to be other guys around him, and there's plenty of options that come through. And I think it was last year, Pat, at this very tournament when old Nappy Gilmore got the job done, just smashing it out there and winning, that I think there was like only 2 guys from the top 10 in pricing that even were involved is sort of on that top 20 of the leaderboard. So just speaking to that, you don't need to spend all your salary this week when we get there later as well.
It's funny. I've only built one lineup so far this week, and it left $1,800 on the table.
That's your specialty. That was the big win for you a few weeks ago. I know it was a different setup, everything, but leaving the cash on the table.
Yeah, I mean, leaving cash on the table in Showdown, I think, is way different than leaving it on the overall. I just went by my stats and my power ranks. Like, yeah, I'll just take the top 6 guys and throw them in a lineup because I always forget to do that. It's like, all right, I'll do it this time around. And it just happened to leave $1,800 on the table. Like, I could have upgraded from Kitayama to Akshay if I wanted to, but I was just like, yeah, there's one lineup. I'm just going to follow the rankings. Just give me 1 through 6 and we'll go.
Yeah, and that works. And you nailed it. Obviously, Showdown's a lot different. If you go look at Showdown lineups and the average salary used on a random Showdown slate, it's going to be much less than on a main slate where so many people just max out their salary. But that's a huge edge on a week like this when you don't, just because they're priced that way doesn't mean anything. It's just that's the price that they were given. You don't have to upgrade every guy in the field. You can just play the 6 that you want and run it out from there.
I'm looking at last year's Mexico Open and the pricing. Finau was $12,000 in this tournament. Griot was 11-1. Nikolai Højgaard was 10-7. Thorbjorn Olesen was 10-3. And Dietrich was 10-1. Those were the 5 guys above $10,000. None of them finished inside the top 10. Dietrich missed the cut. The top 4 all made it. Finau finished the best at T13 in the field. Then after that, it was Keith Mitchell, Jaeger, Patrick Rogers, 19th, 3rd, and 6th. Pendrith missed the cut. EVR came 8th. Hughes and Ryan Fox both missed the cut. Hisa Tune was $9,200. Brandon came 13th. He was $9,100. Hubba Hubbard. Then we got down to Gim and Jake Knapp at 88 and 87. They were 8th and 1st. So yeah, it was just a lot of guys. Like, just to give you a sense of this, Knapp won at $8,700. Valimaki was 2nd at $6,700. Jaeger was 3rd at 98. CT Pan was $5,700 in this tournament. He came 3rd. So did Justin Lauer at $6,100. Then it was Rogers, Bobby Mack. But it's so funny that Griot was 11-1 in this tournament last year. And a guy who was qualified for all 4 majors now is going to be on the European Ryder Cup team, won twice last year. Robert McIntyre was $7,000.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. And that's the thing I was talking about earlier. That's exactly it. So if you're looking at that lineup and setting it up, I'm sure I don't know if you have the ownership there, but I'm sure Finau was extremely popular still being able to get to him in a field like this with that pricing and just, didn't get the job done for that price. We've got a similar situation this week, but it does seem like, again, you can mix and match those guys from 8K to the top and be able to get 3 of those guys in and just hope you got the right ones, but you don't have to upgrade the third one, even if you have the money, just to say you played Akshay, for example.
Smash the like while you were here and use code Mayo at Underdog. I think I found a hack. It didn't win on the Thursday night, but it won in all of the other TGL underdog play. So code Mayo at Underdog gets you a big deposit bonus. And we have 2 big best ball PGA tournaments coming up, one for major season, and then one for the rest of the season starting at the Masters. And the hack is use code Mayo, get a deposit bonus of up to $1,000 and just draft with that deposit bonus money. Then you got a bunch of money left over in your account for pick'em as well. It's a great way to do it. In Tambo, people who use the Pat Mayo rankings for best ball are doing great, at least through segment 1. We'll see how the rest goes. But the advance rate was huge from everyone I talked to. It was awesome. Maybe it's because I'm like the only person who really released rankings, but still, it worked.
That's the kicker. It goes back to my original point. The content is out right now, and if it's working, that's great. Like you said, it's an early segment, so that's awesome to see. But it goes the same in one and done right now. Speaking of Mayo contests, that's going to be similar, and it's sort of been another thing where you've seen the content lead to what the actions are in the field and in the tournament, and it's as good as working out for best ball. And I saw those 2 really huge contests that just came out on Underdog. Yeah,
so those are going to be fun. I'm going to be drafting one initially with Davis later on this week. I actually think that we're going to do it Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. We're going to jump in the lobby and do a major season best ball draft if you want to draft along with us. And then we'll talk about that draft on the show. I think that'll come out on Friday, but code Mayo at Underdog in order to do that right now. But smash the like, sub to the channel. And again, after the show in the comment section, give me your favorite play under $7,000 to get in that draw for an annual membership to fantasynational.com. Here's what I got for bets. Sam Stevens, 28-1. My guy, Michael Kim, 30-1. Kevin Yu at 40-1. Jake Knapp and Nikolai Højgaard both at 55-1. EVR at 66-1. And Antoine Rosner from France at 80-1. I took 2 bomb shots on Thirsty Lawrence at 110-1 because he's my guy. And KH Lee at 125-1 with a top 5 each way. I started doing some digging on KH Lee's. Like, obviously, TPC courses are where he generally does his best work. He's TPC Lee for a reason. But he does really well at driver heavy courses, which I found really interesting because I started to think about, like, what are the corollaries to this course? Well, I've talked all week about Torrey Pines. We've just seen a lot of crossover leaderboards. Happens around the same time of year. Guys in good form can translate that over. Even next week, it's going to be a part of my research show that a lot of guys who did really well in Mexico last year paid that forward into Honda the following week at PGA National, which you'd think, hey, shorter course Bermuda, I want accuracy guys. And Eckroat ended up winning, and he is almost a pure accuracy guy. But we've seen big hitters do really well there as long as they can keep it out of the water, which is more of the strategy, what you see this week and at 3M, which is another course that I put on the list, an easier driver-heavy course. The Bunny Ranch, where KH Lee has won twice, and Scottsdale, where KH Lee has come in second place. So I just thought, hey, it's a week tournament. We really don't know what's going to happen. Everyone's kind of all around the same spots. Why not someone like KH Lee, who's actually won on the PGA Tour before?
Yeah, I mean, you deep dove it, so I like that. The other guys that you mentioned, I think, are all sort of what makes sense perfectly for this course. So your bet's set up well, the card's good. What's the Rosner one? I know, some people have talked about him, but outside of the nice French accent that you can put up,
is in my column. It's also on Golf Digest right now. So he was 4th in Cutter, hardly knew her, a few weeks back, and that was a nice performance from him. He's won twice on Paspalum overseas already, and he seems really good for this course. Like, he has plus distance off the tee, not a ton of accuracy, but as long as you miss in the proper spots here, aka not the water, you're going to be absolutely fine. And his ball striking has just been really good, and it seems to be on right now. Like, his approach play is pretty good, and we see how he was towards the end of last season. Like, the T4 in Cutter is great and everything, but if you just scan back to what he did towards the end of last year, you'll see he was 4th in Korea, the tournament that Ben An and Tom Kim came down to the wire in. He was 6th in Abu Dhabi. Then he was 3rd at the DP World Tour Championship. Like, he only lost to Rory and Rasmus Højgaard in that tournament. I just think that he's getting priced down the board because most American people do not know who Antoine Rosner is. And I'm not saying he should be 20-1 in this tournament, but there's a lot of guys that are 50-1, 45-1 who are about on the same skill level as him, who have never won on the PGA Tour or anywhere in the world. And Rosner does have wins overseas, and he's been a classy player from time to time. When he's in a good stretch, he tends to ride form a lot like Thirsty Lawrence in a lot of ways, that when the form is good, or if you can catch him at the beginning of that hot form run, you do want to stick with him for a while. So already a T4, I think that he can win.
Yeah, I like the breakdown, and I was looking at him from a DFS perspective. So when we get to that later, we'll maybe include him there at 7,300. But I think, like you said, it's not like you're expecting 20-1, but you like him at those odds. And some of the other stuff, like the DP World Tour, like you talk about with Rory and Rasmus. Rasmus is here and is super expensive. The odds reflect it, even after a poor week. But obviously, talent wins out. And then no Rory, but like if he was here, what that would be in the field versus what you see the prices both in the betting market and in DFS on a guy like Rosner. So love the breakdown, like the betting card overall.
Yeah, I tried to make it somewhat balanced. Like I was trying to pick between Sam Stevens and Kevin Yu, and I was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna bet them both. Like I don't care that much. Like if it means that I don't win 8 times my money, if I hit an outright winner this week, I win 7.4 times. I couldn't decide between the two. So as you kind of say, sometimes just take them both.
Yeah, we've had so many times we went back and forth on guys. We're like, oh, I think it's this guy. No, it could be this guy. We make an argument for both cases. And then someone hits us up on X and says, thanks, guys. I won all the money. I used them both. And we're like, oh, that's what we should have done. Thank you.
So I played 3 first-round leaders. I got to update that because I forgot to write that down. EVR 60-1 with a top 5. I played Cristobal de Soler 200-1 with a top 5, and David Skins 200-1 with the top 5. His approach play is really nice, and we just see, I mean, how many times do you just randomly see David Skins be involved in the beginning of every tournament? Then he's never, ever heard from again. He just has low rounds in him.
Yeah, he's got the golf name too, David Skins. We got Blades Brown in the field. We got all the good golf names. But yeah, he's definitely been up there. That's why people at least recognize the name, and the way to get after it is something like Showdown or first round leader. So I like that call, especially with 200-1 odds.
Have you started betting yet this year, or are you still just strictly DraftKings?
Just so far, just strictly DraftKings, and then the one and done. I'm pretty pissed off about the one and done because last week I changed from Ludwig to Justin Thomas to Colin Morikawa. So it just got worse as the week went on. They all did good. Obviously, winner 13th and 15th or some, or 8th and 13th or 15th. But yeah, I had Ludwig in there. We talked a lot about it last week, and that was one I wish I stuck with.
I had him in there.
Yes, you did.
Very nice. Scheffler, Ludwig turned out to be a pretty profitable week, at least right now, moving up in the standings. And then I had Hideki as my other guy, who was T13. It wasn't bad, so I'm not too worried about that. I played some Kenya bets. So Guido, 37-1 to win the tournament. And then just a range of ladders on the Kabugi man. So there's 2 Kabugus in the field. You want Njonge Kabugu. He is 4,500-1 to win this tournament. I played that with 12 places. I also played him first round leader with 5 places at 400-1, and I played him top 20 at 45-1. This is the annual donation that we make on this dude at the Kenya Open, so I'm here for it. Sky originally found him. He's like the best guy from Kenya. And he just shot 15 under at this course like 2 weeks ago.
Whatever. I know the numbers probably drop, but like it's kind of just to be there to have fun with it. So, I'm good with that. I like that call.
Yeah, I mean, you really missed out. He's no longer 4,500-1. He's 4,000-1.
Exactly. I was gonna just tie it to your other one. There was one you had a couple of weeks ago that was hilarious, where you posted it out, you gave all the good reasoning. You know it's not gonna win. You're like, whatever. You're just throwing it out there because, and then you followed it up with your own reply post that said, only 15 strokes off the lead. Not bad. It's like, yeah, not even close for first round leader, but we all tried it anyway for whatever the odds were, 2,000-1 or something insane.
Yeah, it was the dude in Qatar. He had won it was the Bahrain. He won the Bahrainian Amateur at the same course. He was like 19. He was from Pakistan, and like he's just this young dude. I was like, hey, just might as well fire. Why not? He was like 8,000-1 or something like that. It's not like you're like, listen, if you can't afford to lose the money, don't make the bet. If it's not worth the $10 to you to win 80 grand just to have a fun sweat when you wake up and watch some DP World Tour in the morning, like maybe this show and maybe betting's not for you.
Yeah, that was the best. It was like they wake up and have a fun sweat. The fun sweat. Yeah, 15 strokes off the lead. Not bad.
Well, in fairness, super zesty DTR, as I've been calling him, was like 61 in the first round.
It can happen. I'm not saying that. I just think it's hilarious to follow. Like you said, it's not for you if this is not hilarious to you, because to me, it was absolutely hilarious to see it shake out like that. And I'm sure this will be the same, but we got to support. We got to ride with it. We've been doing it for years. Let's keep on the Kabuki Man train, like you mentioned.
Is the stream fixed now? I saw we were having.
I think it's a YouTube thing.
It's a YouTube thing.
Like YouTube itself, like you have to refresh. Everything that they patch out from us is fine. People in the chat are saying if they refresh their stream on their end.
Oh, it works. Oh, okay. I see.
It's out of our control.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, there we go. Yes, because it wasn't lagging on X. So yeah, if you just refresh your page, you should be good. Hopefully on the replay, it's not all that bad. I've never lost at this tournament in betting in its 3-year existence, which is unheard of for me, as anyone has seen my record so far this year. I had the Kitayama. He came in second place, so I had the each way on him at like 150 to 1 when he lost to Rahm the first year. I had Akshay 2 years ago when they lost to Finau, and he was in that final group, and he was like 170 to 1 or something like that, right when the Akshay train took off. And obviously I hit Nap last year, so I'm excited that maybe I can actually win some money betting for like the first time in 3 years, Tambo.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do here, right? So it did not work for me last week. I can say that much, but get back on the horse this week. And with the Mexico Open, I think there's always opportunities just based on, people sort of going with the flow and just running with what everybody else says, or taking it, where they're not playing as much. So they're kind of just playing whatever their favorite plays are, betting whatever their favorites are, all that stuff. So lots of different angles to take advantage.
So with a Ludwig winner in the one and done a week ago, I vaulted from 4,100th place to 266th place and well into the money. Shows you what a win in an elevated event can do. And my other two are inside the top 1,300 right now, 1,300th place and 1,200th place. So just outside the money in those. So I'm feeling a little bit better. This is a pretty non-consequential week as it pertains to the one and done. But if you want to get someone inside the top 5, it's not going to hurt you at all. But you're obviously not wasting. And is there anyone in this tournament you can envision playing at any other like good event the rest of the year?
And I was going to ask you, you're usually the best at figuring that out, but like, I guess the only real decision here on those types of spots are what? Akshay and Kitayama? Maybe.
I mean, Kitayama's not even
2 more.
Kitayama's not even the majors. Oh, I think I'm going to put that out once there's going to be custom tournaments for the best ball drafts for major season, and I'll release the list. I made up the list last night of all of the players who are playing who are qualified for 4 majors, 3 majors, 2 majors, and 1 major, and a list of those. And then you can kind of figure out rankings from there, because you'll want to take the guys that are playing in the most majors to try to accrue the most points. But I can't, like Kitayama's, I don't think in any of them.
No, but I mean, you were never using him in a major anyway. So I'm just saying, if you were considering any guys, your question was anybody in this field that we would consider saving, and for certain events, I don't know about you, but like I think the only thing people would be thinking about here is Akshay and Kitayama as potentials that they would use in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I could use Akshay down the line. I doubt I'm going to use him in an elevated event. I do not think I will use him this week, though. I just think he's going to be as we talked about off the top, he's not Rahm. Like if he was Rahm, not that you would burn Rahm because you would use him in the future. So maybe you would use him here. I don't know. Maybe I'll just use him at Valero down the line. I just think he's going to be like 25% owned, which is probably the correct amount that he should be owned. But I'll just pivot elsewhere and hope he doesn't win.
Yeah, I get that's definitely the one way to look at it. But then also just like, take what you can get, I guess. But if you're not thinking about saving him, but the other thing is, I don't know if it's a mistake because we don't know what the result's going to be, but the other thing is, where do people go next? And I think it's on to guys like Patrick Rogers or Michael Kim because they're playing well. That's fine too. It's just you got to know that those could turn out pretty bad as well. So it's a tricky one for one and done. I think it's Akshay or just pick your guy up top. I kind of like the Sam Stevens call that you had earlier. I'm just sort of thinking about him here, and I might use him.
Yeah, Sam Stevens, like the guy, obviously the guys that I bet I like a lot. So
yeah,
but I don't know how that ends up translating. Like it'd be a spot to use Jake Knapp if you really wanted to. I mentioned Alex Smalley off the hop. I think he's going to be quite popular. You can just you could actually go down the board and go off the board here. I don't think you have to, but I don't think it's that different this week. Like if you really want to go off the board with a really strong player, I would say Aaron Rai, Harry Hall, and Bo Hostler and Ben Griffin are 4 guys that literally no one is using in the one and done.
Yep, definitely fine with that because again, it's all everything you said at the top. We're not saving them for anything. So use them, take what you get out of them. Hope that it's also twofold. It's not a signature event or a big time prize or anything that's going to change the game too much. Obviously, you want a win, but I'm saying if Akshay just fails and that's 25% of the one and done field, and whoever you just punted on just to use somebody ends up beating him and doing well, it's still, even if they don't win, you're still almost saving Akshay, which whether that matters or not, but you're also picking up somebody else. So you're picking up money on so much of the field that way. So I'm fine with that strategy and just picking whoever you like after the fact.
Who else? How popular do you think that Patrick Rogers gets in the one and done? Like, I'm good with fading Patrick Rogers coming off his best career week ever. Shocker, he didn't win, huh?
Yeah, Sunday where Patrick Rogers doesn't come through, and it's unfortunate, man. Honestly, the guy plays well and gets into these spots, but I think it was a big one, the heartbreaker of Akshay. Speaking of Akshay and him, the Barracuda, remember? Akshay came back and hunted him down in the playoff. That was Patrick Rogers. That was his win right there, and it didn't happen. So now we're going on 290 starts. So hopefully he can find one, man. Feel bad for him. I thought between him and McNeely, the Stanford guys, coming through, getting the old Stanford handshake from Tiger Woods, but it did not happen. Ludwig is just too good. So I don't know, but in one and done, to answer your question, I already saw it pop up in the chat a couple times. It's been mentioned in Discords and stuff. I think people are, when they're fading Bhatia in one and done, they're going immediately to Patrick Rogers. Well, he's playing good now. He's got good course history here. Let's just take him while he's good. But that can obviously go very bad. And like you say, you're probably not getting a win. We know that much.
So for the one that I usually talk about on this show, where we ended up using, I believe, Hideki last week, it's now the worst of my three teams after starting out as the best of the three teams. I think I'm going to use Taylor Moore.
Yeah. Well, okay. Give us your Taylor Moore take, because he's a guy this week that's interesting to me on all the stuff we're about to talk about moving forward, but you're bringing it up for one and done. So we could start there he's the guy that looks like he projects well and should pop and get ownership for when we get to DFS, and more people talking about him with betting and all these factors. Yet, do you think people actually go there? Because I'm hearing a lot more about Ben Griffin, Kevin Yu, Alex Smalley, Jake Knapp, all these guys. So what's the deal with Taylor Moore? What do you got up for us on that one?
So I like Kevin Yu more, but the issue with Kevin Yu is that he legitimately cannot putt. Now, he won a tournament during the swing season. His tee to green game is excellent. Just played really well at Torrey. That's one of the indicators that I want to look for. Taylor Moore he has had a lot of success at driver-heavy courses. He plays really well in Detroit every time they go to the Rocket Mortgage, which is just kind of a fire away, hit some long irons, make some putts. You're going to see over 60% of approaches this week come in from 175 plus. And Taylor Moore is just a really bad iron player by and large, but he's better the longer his irons get versus the field. Like, he is not going to win a wedge fest against anyone because he's awful with his wedges compared to someone like Akshay, who's just going to go pin seeking every single time. But Taylor Moore is a very good putter and he's a very good driver. That's sort of the skill set that I think that can come through here. Generally speaking, he's very good around the greens, but we saw this when he was in better form last year, where he played well at Torrey. I don't believe he played this tournament, but I think he played well at Valspar. He came top 20 at the Masters. He did really well at the Bunny Ranch for the Byron Nelson. So there is something there. Jake Knapp, I actually think, is a pretty good one and done play too. It's just, I don't think anyone's using Taylor Moore. He was the last cut from my betting card that I did want to bet him because I see where the upside comes through him. And he's won before. He's won in Valspar. He almost won in Detroit. There's a good field for him. And his performances this year, it's weird. Could we talk about Rory sometimes, right? That it's always been my thing that if Rory just missed the cut in every major, no one would talk about how he's a choke artist and struggles in majors. It would just be like no one would remember him from majors. But when you constantly come in second and lose at the very end, people are like, what a loser. This guy sucks. And Taylor Moore is weirdly suffering from that right now. He does have 2 top 10s in his past 4 starts. He came 9th in Scottsdale. He came 7th at the American Express. He played in the elevated event at Pebble Beach. He came in 22nd. It's that 56th at the Farmers that really sticks out. He lost 7 strokes putting over the 3 rounds at the South Course, which is weird for him as someone who's just generally a very positive putter over time. And he shot an 80 in the final round, which is just going to make your scores look really bad. And I know a lot of people used him that week. I had bet him that week, and it was just very frustrating to own him, watching him basically score negative points. That people are still really salty about that. I think going back to him this week is a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I just clicked it in while we were talking because I want to talk about this too. 1 second before we get done with one and done. You mentioned Kitayama. I think you gave away some of your DFS lineup earlier, and you mentioned Kitayama being in it, like that $1,800 on the table. You could have went up from Kitayama to Bhatia. What's your, because we did just mention him 2 minutes ago, like maybe the guy that people would save, but I actually don't think anyone's going to Kitayama or Rasmus here. Like even you jumped down to, we talked about Stevens, Jagger, Rogers, Rye, Hall, some of those guys. What do you think about just using Kitayama or Rasmus here?
I can see it. Most definitely. Like Rasmus is a difficult one to figure out because now it legitimately does scare me that he was the worst player in the field last week. I don't know if there's a residual effect. It's something he can wipe out of his mind. It just seems crazy to me that he was second in Phoenix and then all of a sudden he gets into an elevated event. I mean, he's in all of them because he was number one on the DP World Tour a year ago. So he has those qualifications. But at a course that I link so much to success with this course, that he did so poorly.
All right. I think I'm going to play Kitayama then. I think that's what I've talked myself into.
Kitayama also sucks. So don't forget that.
It's true. But that's exactly. Everybody thinks that. It is what it is. I'm going to be fine with it. I think that's who I'm choosing this week for mine.
So I will roll out Taylor Moore for our talk through and the one that I put in the official picks for this show. And it'll be a mystery. You'll find out on Thursday morning who I am taking in the one and done for my other two teams. Because when I tweet out the ownership and you see those three names in red, those are my picks that come from the official account. So you can mock them or be like, man, Pat really boosted. Because last week I took Ludwig because I assumed when we talked it through that no one would go back to Ludwig. I was like, oh, perfect. Like I have three teams. I burned him on the one team that week that I thought no one was going to use. I'm at Pebble Beach and he withdrew, got me no money, but he ended up being like the second highest owned guy. So I was like, well, of course, no one's going to go back to him this time around. And I think he was like third in ownership again.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Right now, everyone's listening and moving it on. It's not just you or this show or anything. I'm just saying, I think a lot of people right now are strictly just taking in the free content, checking it all out, listening to all the pods, going through all the tiers, doing it for everything they do, betting, DFS, and for one and done, and just tying it all together. And so, and like you said, for best ball, if your ranks are out, that's perfect. And they're doing well. So people can go grab those. But just saying, like, that's the setup right now. So if you talk about Ludwig's going to be popular. That's what ended up happening.
All right, we're going to get to DraftKings lineups, ownership, and your questions after this break. But I do want to remind you before we get there, smash the like, sub to the channel, and learn a little bit more about the TGL. Welcome to the TGL presented by SoFi, golf's newest league. It's sharp. It's electric. How sharp is it? How electric is it? Good questions. Try this on for size. 2 hours of hammer dropping, overtime, forcing, playoffs on the line, golf with 24 of the best players from the PGA Tour, split into 6 teams: Atlanta, Boston, Jupiter, LA, New York, and the Bay Golf Club. This isn't your average Sunday pickup game. Tune into TGL Monday or Tuesday night only on ESPN. Claim yourself a seat for the first season of TGL now. Keep up. It's golf. Code Mayo at Underdog will get you that deposit bonus of up to $1,000. And you play some, I forgot to mention, unders for single players on TGL, Tambo. That's the play.
Is it? I wouldn't know. Yeah, that's your lane.
Well, no. Well, I mean, just logically, it makes a lot of sense. Now, they do cap you. I think $50 is the most you can get down per entry. But you have to think about it logically, right? What happens on most holes in TGL? Just in general. Are they one lost or halved?
I actually don't know.
It's halved.
I haven't watched.
They're halved. Halved
Okay.
is the most, like, it's, I think it's like 60% of the time, 60% of the time, a hole is halved. Now, what you can do, they have higher or lower half a hole win for players per. So like Tiger Woods, over under half a hole won in singles play. But in singles play, everyone only plays 2 holes. So if they just have both holes or lose a hole, now it didn't work out last night because I forgot that someone had to play Kevin Kisner. I was like, oh, damn it. Totally forgot about this. I probably should have looked at that beforehand. But on Monday, it was great. You just took like kind of the bad guys, took their like 0.98 lowers on holes 1, and they either pushed or lost every hole. It was awesome. But you can even do it with big names like Rory and Lowry. I put together on an underdog ticket on Monday night, and it paid like 3.4 to 1 or something, like higher than it should normally pay because they were 2 big names. Everyone wanted to bet higher. Oh, Rory's definitely going to win. It's like, no, guys just don't win holes all that often, and you only play 2 of them.
Yeah, I think one of the things, I get the timeline blowups from everybody, but I do say, like, so I see some of the stuff that pops up, but I think the one thing they need, you can talk to them, Pat, because you've already got some of the sponsorship with them. They should be the one to embrace the betting stuff.
Agreed.
And bring it right in-house and get everybody that goes there in and get you running it and doing all that. If the PGA is going to do their little shows here and there on the actual broadcast, I get it, but it's not for everybody. And like some people sitting back just want to watch golf or throw it on the TV for noise or something like that. TGL seems much more primed for it. So that should be the angle of attack.
They could do a better job of the betting integration. I'm going to talk to Keith Stewart later on this week more on this subject, but I think that there's a way to talk about gambling on the main golf broadcast that doesn't alienate people that don't want to hear about it. Like even just using I always thought this about spreads in the NFL when they were talking about it, but they don't do a good job of contextualizing what that actually means. They're like, oh, I want to take this spread or that spread. It's like, well, that's great. I mean, that's what I talk about. But if you were to put it on screen to be like, hey, Kurt Kitayama is 213 yards away on the 13th hole in Mexico. It's a par 5. And if you had like micro betting, which all they want to do is push is micro betting, and this is a way to do that. Be like, hey, for him to make a birdie right now is like plus 120. For him to par this hole is minus 200. To him to make a bogey is like 9-1 or something like that. So you can put the percentages of what those means, and then you can translate it out. Hey, Kurt Kitayama, when he is 213 yards out, or his bucket, like 200 to 225, how often does he make birdie from that range? And you can put it up on the screen next to it and juxtapose it with the odds. Now, they probably don't want to show you how much vig that they're taking, and the percentages don't actually equal out. That's likely the issue that they run into. But I think that would be a bit better way to integrate betting, but also show you some sort of storytelling element of it too.
They could do it. You could do it. Lots of people would be successful with it if they got the right people and laid it out. But I just think there's a few things. One, and I know it's not what this is all about, but just to note it, like target market, average age of person watching, and pace, it fits so much better for TGL. And you incorporated football, and that's the prime example. I could tell you, like my uncle, 65 years old, he's betting his buddy to win a football game, and they're so ignorant of the spread. Like he'll literally just bet a guy straight up, and he's a 9.5 point underdog. I think they're going to upset them. It's just win or lose. And in golf, like you said, obviously there's different factors to it and all that. But I think in TGL, the pace, the younger grouping, the flash the odds boards, things like that, I think they could do a really good job of incorporating that, making it a better fit, and just tightening up what they're working on already. That would be a way to spice it up just a little bit more.
Yeah, just bring on Underdog as an official partner. You can do higher or lower for this hole, higher or lower drive distance for that hole if you really wanted to get into it. Now, it's tough with TGL because there's a shot clock. That stuff moves at a pretty big pace, but you could still figure it out, or at least you know what holes are coming. You know what players are driving on each hole. You can have like the next 3 holes listed, 3 holes in advance if you really wanted to get into it. Like if they're concerned about that kind of thing, which I would be if I was TGL and trying to generate revenue, or if I was Underdog and trying to get into that market, because I think that there's a pathway for Underdog to be really successful at golf. Hence why I'm partnered with them, because I do believe in their long-term vision. It's hard to execute that kind of stuff. And you kind of have to go off the board a little bit when thinking about how Underdog mixes with golf. Like these PGA best ball drafts have been awesome ideas. That's a 1v1. But sometimes like the over-under rounds kind of thing is not necessarily what people want to play when it comes to it. It's more of a, if you could incorporate Underdog as you're watching it, I think you would be more successful that way versus when you're a general sports book. Yeah, the pre-tournament betting is where most of the action is going to go down. If you want to cultivate that in-tournament viewing experience, I think that Underdog has a better way to do that than some of the traditional sports books.
They can act quickly, they can get after it, but also too the blowout factor. Everyone keeps saying, oh, TGL, if it's bad, the lovers say, well, it was a blowout today, so that didn't help. You know what keeps people involved in a blowout? I've been there plenty of Thursday night football games, watching the NFL, watching a blowout to the very end. You know why? Because I got a bunch of money on the line and I'm waiting to see it play out. So that's the idea of, if you incorporated that into it, you know how you keep people around, talk about, well, hey, this ain't going down that well for the Jupiter Lynx or whatever their name is, but you could bet on this right now and let's go up. We got the next hole coming up. It's going to be this, or maybe this happens versus this happens. And you can really involve it a lot more. That's the way to tie it all together for something like this, the way they have it currently set up.
I completely agree. And they did change the rules on TGL going into this week to make it more competitive. And 3 of the 4 matches were super competitive. So they got what they wanted from it.
Got to see the ratings, Pat. That tells all.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's like 60% of what it opened at, I still think I would think that's a huge success, especially after seeing the numbers that Liv is getting on Fox.
Yeah, I don't think I mean, we're going sideline here. We don't have to go too far with it, but I just think that's like, to me, they didn't buy all that stuff for ratings right now. That's not what the starting point of what they're doing was. I know people love to talk about this stuff on X and go through it all, whatever, and that's just easy to hop on that bandwagon. I'm not a Liv lover either, but I'm saying the TGL lovers went from our ratings are through the roof to now, well, I know we're only at 50 or 60% of that, but that's kind of good still. That's all they were really thinking. You can get that on a Tuesday in the winter. We're good. No, shut up. You were saying it was $1 million a few weeks ago, and that was everything. Like, to me, it don't matter. I just don't care about it that much. I'm just saying, but for Liv, I don't think they were buying it, expecting it out of the gates or whatever. They're 2-3 years, whatever it is in now, to worry too much about the ratings. They're trying to powerhouse a move.
No,
that's totally different.
They are, but I do think the TGL only exists to kind of shame Liv. I think it's giving them they're like, hey, we can run a B league and have it be more successful than your main league. And I think that's going to help them in negotiations. I think it's honestly, the only reason it exists is for more money for these guys who are in it, just another way to pay them. And they don't have to win tournaments to do it, just feed their pockets, but also to shame Liv a little bit, make it seem like, hey, really no one cares about this. And people barely care about TGL, but they care way more about TGL than Liv, at least in America.
Seems that way with the ratings. Like you said, people are going on, but I think, people care a lot more about getting Bryson, Rahm, Brooks, those guys back over and playing. And it sounds like it's going to be sooner than later. And even Adam Scott said something, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that it also, like, a Tiger had mentioned it and hinted at it on the broadcast the other day. And then Adam Scott said something about it, but he said that the current member base may not be super happy about how that looks. So we'll have to wait and see. And Rory had made a comment too, that like they would be owners of it with, the new equity deal and all that. So I'm wondering if part of the deal is they're trying to transfer it over that way, even though those guys already got paid over on Liv.
Scotty is in the chat. Shout out, Scotty. Thoughts on Santiago de la Fuente? I think you're trying too hard this week, if that's where you're at.
play Del Soler instead. That's your guy, the first round leader.
I bet him his first. Bet this guy is first round leader. Like, play him in Showdown or something. Like, I'm not attaching my wagon to these guys on my main DraftKings lineups.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't even know if you need to go to the 6Ks. We'll get there in a second, but yeah.
The 6Ks are pretty bad, and like it's a pretty noticeable difference. Like, there are just names down here. Like, I barely know who any of these guys are. It's tough. And I do this for a living, that you really have to sift through what's going on with a lot of them. But we'll talk DraftKings starting right now. If you are out there, you smash like. If you're watching on X, there's a lot of people watching on X right now. Do me a favor, hit that reshare button. The cheat sheet for the show coming out later, both in the newsletter on X and Tambo. I've booked the venue for the live show, so I'll eventually have tickets on sale. And I'll do that through the newsletter if people want first access to those in Toronto on June 7th at the Rec Room. Gonna be a time. Who do you think is going to be the most owned guy? Or do you have like an optimal lineup pulled up in front of you? Because I'm very curious what it might be this week.
I might have to give up on that game now, because last week did not go how I thought it would. And that's why I'm struggling with it, because I obviously use a lot more of, Ship It Nation projections, ownership, things like that, where I can try and guideline it. And it just has not worked out that way. I have to think right now, no matter what, it ends up being Akshay. And I am going to say now that I just think there is a possibility he gets even higher than people think, because of the Rasmus factor, which I'm going to bring in right now. If you go to projection sites and stuff out there that people have, because of the odds and because of all that, Rasmus looks like he should be a little bit more popular. But currently right now, all people seem to believe and understand is that he was $8,300 last week and he sucked. So when it's only $600 more to go up to Akshay, and Kitayama's right there, and people kind of were shitting on him in the chat too, Kurt Shitayama, they're going up for the $500 as well. So I just got to think it's Akshay and then go down from there.
Best email to reach Pat, mayomediainc@gmail.com is that will get, if it's a good email and not some sort of trash, it will get forwarded to me and I will check it out. How about that? If that's what
it's one of the, hey pal, I got a meme coin. I need your help to pump. You interested? You get those ones?
No, I get a lot of, hey Pat, I'm really good at golf betting. Can I be on your show?
Okay.
You'd be shocked. You'd be shocked at the amount of email. And listen, you might be good at golf betting. I don't know how you are as a guest. There's a lot of sharp people out there who have no business being in front of a camera. They'd be better at making a tweet with bets in it, or starting an email service or something like that.
Also, Jeff is kind of ruining your reputation right now with the heater he's on, because your show is supposed to be bad golf bets that you don't follow. You just watch for the entertainment. That's what you've always said. And now Jeff's just going off and winning all the time. So that's something you got to fix up, I think, Pat. You guys got to start losing more. That's what the people want.
Hey, I'm trying my best to lose as much as possible, okay?
Yeah. The X post, though, when they send that meme coin thing, I think Dave Portnoy took it literally. He got those, and now he's pumping every single coin there is out there, it seems like. So maybe he's getting those messages in the DMs and just running with them.
I've been following along, kind of following along with that. I don't know what the hell is going on. I couldn't imagine buying a meme coin. Maybe I'm just too old. I'm just like, this looks like someone is trying to scam me. This is the first thing I think of.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of them are fine too.
There's all kinds of people into this stuff. I can't chase too many different things. I'm content with what I have and where I'm at right now. So I'm not getting into that, but I do think it's funny. And every time you open up your other additional messages, you have like 15 of these messages in there. People they're literally asking, can you pump this coin for me? Like that seems a bit aggressive if you're asking that.
All right. Let's see. Questions we'll be taking at the end. So let's try to fill out what we think is going to be the most popular lineup. I agree with you. It's Akshay is going to be in the most lineups, especially after you said like people are mad at Rasmus. People just are furious with Kitayama because he keeps rating out highly, projecting really well, and just coming nowhere close to what he's doing it. So who do we think it's from the bottom then? I think that's the easiest way to do it. Who do you think is the lowest priced player who's actually going to be popular? Like I like Hayden Springer. He's $6,800. I don't think that he gets even close to 10%.
That's the challenge. So there's like almost 40 guys in the 7K range, and I don't see very many of them getting to 12 to 15 range, even as far as ownership goes for percentage. So
EVR,
it's tough to really
EVR,
yeah.
Kevin Roy, Christoph Ventura, and Rosner. And I think that Rosner will be more like amongst the circle of people who watch this show, very online, people who like follow the DP World Tour. I don't think the masses end up getting there. And you could probably say the same thing about Kevin Roy. Maybe it's EVR. Maybe that's the answer.
Let's put him in there for now because he's definitely one of them that's possible.
EVR. Let's throw in the sexy Roy. Not your Roy toy at $7,400. The only reason I bet on Jake Knapp this week is because when the odds opened on Sunday night, those soft openers, that Jake Knapp was behind Kevin Roy on the betting board.
Yeah. I think it's maybe Rosner goes into this anyway at 7,300 because then you can kind of do whatever you want.
Well, Potgeider's down here as well. I've just heard a lot of buzz about Potgeider and big on driving distance. I don't think you need to be the longest hitter in the field in order to excel here. I just think you need to be like plus distance. That doesn't mean the most distance. Just don't be super short.
Yeah, Potgeider's another one maybe I'll just be wrong on, but it feels like, I don't know. Everyone says he's going to be so popular and they're talking about him like he's going to be, huge ownership. If he is, it would shock me, but who knows if that's what everyone's listening to right now. I think Ventura would have a chance to be more. I think there's other guys that project out well that may pop into your optimizers and stuff. Your boy Rico is right there. People could go there. Ventura.
Ricky Castillo is there. Joe Highsmith is really interesting to me because he was a guy that I loved during the swing season and played really well in the swing season. What do you have? 1, 2, 3, 4. He had top 20s in 5 of 6 events during the swing season. And he's just been brutal to start the year, but he's pretty big off the tee and his approach play has been pretty good at the Farmers and in Phoenix. He just couldn't chip or putt. This is one of the easiest chipping courses on tour. Don't ask Nikolai Højgaard that from last year because he could not chip. He must have chipped into the water or something. I don't know how those stats end up like that, but just Highsmith's putting went in the tank and it normally does suck a lot, but it did flip for a while. If we can get it to flip back, like he was 6th in Puerto Rico a year ago. That was his only good result. Obviously, that was on Pass Palom. He missed the cut here last year. That's unfortunate, but his off the tee numbers are usually quite strong. And he was someone that was popular coming into the season. Everyone is off. Do you think if we can identify who the popular ones are, and that becomes the difficult point of this, do you just pivot off of those and use the same guy at way less ownership for the same price?
Feels like this week is very similar to the Scotty week when I said just fade those 5 guys. Put in the 5 guys next to it and just move off them. And
but we don't know who
But
we don't know who the 5 guys are is the problem.
There's exactly because they're not going to be pumped up enough, and you won't sort of know until the final ownership comes out tomorrow. But I think in this lineup, just to round it out, if you put Smalley in, then it just becomes a decision of do you want to play Lauer with Kevin Roy, or do you want to play Knapp and pick between Rosner, Ventura, Potgeider? That to me seems like the popular build because Smalley definitely goes into it. So to me, it's some version of this. Van Rooyen, I put in a Highsmith. Like you said, Highsmith is popping too. So I think Highsmith could get some ownership here.
I think people will just look at his results and be like, nah, can't do it.
Yeah, so exactly. So he should get it, but it may not happen. But he definitely looks like somebody that is in the range of opportunity this week. But whoever you want to go down to, go to Rico instead of your boy Hoey. Instead of him, I think you can do whatever you want in this lower range. It's hard to pick, but for who we think is going to be popular, it's somewhere in this range of Ventura, Rosner, Potgeider, Hoey, Roy, all those guys you mentioned. Van Rooyen, maybe even Chan Kim. I think it's in the bottom 7 case here where we see people landing to round out these lineups, just like we're looking at right now.
So I'm looking at Fantasy National right now, and just the amount, and one of the indicators this, like later on in the week, like DGen James always says, like, look at the favorite percentage earlier on in the week. That should give you a very strong indication of where people are like thinking about going. And then the farther we get into the week, although lineups are down because it's the Mexico Open, people are just not that interested in playing. But actual lineup generate, when people generate their lineups, who actually populates those lineups? Like it's Akshay, it's Kitayama, it's Kevin Yu, it's Patrick Rogers, it's Michael Kim. Those are the top 5. Obviously, we can't jam all those guys in. And I do think that we're seeing that, like, even in the lineup that I've built right now, because I did see that Nikolai Højgaard and Nicholas Moeller are at 81 and 84 are jumping out as guys that get generated in a lot of these lineups. I think what's going to end up happening is that people are going to try to play Akshay. It doesn't work because they're uncomfortable with the low 7s and high 6s, and they're going to dump Akshay and they're going to go to like Sam Stevens to start these lineups. Like that sort of move.
I've been so wrong. I think
that's what you see.
If I was confident, after last week, I would say 0 chance that happens. But because they are comfortable with guys down here. There's literally like 10. The problem is we just don't know who the 12 to 15% owned options are yet. I can get an idea of some of the steam, but again, because a lot of people are just chasing what others are saying right now, it becomes, is it Potgieter and Rosner that pick it up? Is it, Jesper Svensson? Some people are mentioning Patrick Fishburne in the upper 7s.
I like Jesper Svensson.
Right. So who we like is who people end up on in some cases, not just you and I. I'm talking like all the shows out there. But I think for me, the Akshay Yu Smalley start and then picking your 7K guys could also be another way. I don't know if Kevin Roy gets it like the other guys do down here for the ownership. So,
but he's your sexy Roy.
He's your sexy boy toy Roy. He's not mine. But you could do like what about Matty Schmid?
Yeah, I have him highlighted right now. I don't know. I just don't know where the sentiment is on him. And like, that's what's tough. Like, not only are you trying to think of like what projections say, what optimization says, and how that's going to affect ownership from this range, you also have to think this is a week where, as you said, we're still earlier on in the season. People are listening to these free shows, smashing the like, sharing them around, subbing to the network, and doing all that great stuff. And then they're interpreting that and just going with those plays. But you also have to think about that there's only so many guys down in this range that people have actually ever fucking heard of. And like, that's going to be a factor too. Like Charlie Hoffman's going to be more popular than is projected because he's Charlie Hoffman. He's playing okay. And he's $7,600 and people know who he is.
Yeah. I think you can do whatever you want down here. For me, I guess the upper 7s is probably Matt Wallace, Fishburne. Then after that, it's like you said, maybe it's Hoffman at 7,600. The Bridgman, Highsmith guys of the world get a little bit of ownership. And then it's that $7,300 to $7,500 range with Potgieter, Rosner, Ventura, Roy, and Chan Kim Van Rooyen. Those are sort of the range. That's the range that makes everything work.
I think Hoffman will be higher owned than all of like the first 8 people you mentioned that are around him. Because anyone who wants to go to that Matt Wallace, Fishburne, Putnam, Thorbjornsen, maybe, but like Jesper Svensson, Ryan Gerard, Carson Young, like all those guys, I think they'll either find the money to get up to Nikolai Højgaard or down, and then they choose Charlie Hoffman.
Man, I hope just one of these weeks finally goes my way. If people are playing Chucky Hoffman over some of these other dudes up there, like that to me is insane, but I'll be playing it my way and see if your take is right. I hope it is, because I would love to be against Hoffman with all of those guys personally.
I might fade Akshay in every lineup. I'm starting to think about that.
I think it's fine if you do it this week. It's like we said, he's not a Rom. He's not a Scotty. He definitely has good T20 odds, and that's fine, but it's not like the other guys behind him are that far off. So he could make the cut and finish 20th or pull like a Rory from last week. Really crush it. Be in the mix. You think it's going to be something, doesn't quite come through on Saturday, but he's still kind of hovering in a group on Sunday, and then just falls apart and doesn't go his way, and he's not needed at all or even close. That's certainly possible in the range of outcomes. Huge for a guy like Akshay this week.
So let's start Akshay, Kevin Yu, because I do think, like, just based on the numbers that I am seeing, how people are generating lineups, it does seem like those two correlate a little bit because no one's comfortable with the 6s. And you had mentioned this earlier, and this will just drop you into that mid-sevens range where we've been populated already. Whereas if you go with Patrick Rogers or Jagger or Steven, someone higher, then you're forced to go a little bit lower. And I don't think that people are super comfortable with that. This gives you $7,600 left. So you can kind of pick this off here. You can go. I've seen a lot of people bet Goddard this week. Do you think that will translate to DraftKings?
It should. Not just the betting, but also the other markets. Like, it feels like he should get some love down here. People, he does smash it out there, but he's another guy that would probably fall in of the, under 10% range. It just feels like people are mentioning him because Highsmith is there, other guys around him.
How about Toasty?
He's one actually that I don't see getting the love, even though usually this is an exact spot people would want him, right? And obviously I think it was last year he played pretty well here, or was it the year before last? He had a top 10 or something, but again, not seeing it translate into the ownership right now.
Okay, so let's see some of the other guys down here. If I just sort by salary, and we'll go to the low sevens. So Jackson Suber, Joel Damon.
Super Troopers.
Yeah, super trooper. I like that one. I mean, I like that guy. I forget where I was on him. We were talking through it. He's had like
He's a bear off special. So you probably got the DM.
He mashes it. After his top 10 at Sony, I ended up on him somewhere. It didn't really work out. Matty Schmidt. Yeah. You know what? Do you think it'd be Schmidt or Griot?
Schmidt.
At 7,000, he might be, or Hayden Springer soaks up all of this at $6,800.
Again, I don't see it, but it could happen. Yeah, he's definitely there. There's other guys. I don't know if people end up doing that, so tough to say. But he should get ownership, so we could put Springer into this one too if we want to go with our cheap guy call on him. That would be the guy that would fit it at 6,800.
Well, the ones that I've identified as potentially being the highest owned of the sixes, and as I mentioned, I don't know if any of these guys get over 6% owned. Be beyond me here. Hayden Springer, Will Gordon, Wacky Valimaki would be the three.
Yeah, I think Hayden Springer of those ones.
All right, so let's say that Springer picks up steam here. So we throw Springer into this lineup. So it's Akshay, Kevin Yu, Hayden Springer. Now we have $7,900 left. If people are comfortable going with like Rico Hoey or Matty Schmidt, for example, at 7,000, now you're at 8,350, and you can get back into that range where people actually like players. You could go Nikolai Højgaard, who I do think is going to be pretty popular. And then at 86, you could go Jake Knapp. Or
there you go.
Like that seems
that's one.
Like that feels like a lineup that people will play.
Yeah, that definitely feels like, and it also feels like a lineup that could have some of the steam in it. In Kevin Yu, Matty Schmid, and Jake Knapp, you could see all those guys pick up. Højgaard even like at 8,100 possible, and then whatever happens with Springer happens. But yeah, I could definitely see that being very similar, and it's the best projection we've pulled yet so far.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, let's play that. Now let's adjust that in case people do not want to go down to the Schmidt and Hayden Springer range. Like that's too cheap for people. Let's say we get rid of Knapp, keep Nikolai in there, get rid of Springer, and we'll get rid of Schmidt. And that brings us to 74. And then we're back to Ventura and Hoffman or something like that.
What'd you say? Potgieter, Ventura.
We can get rid of Ventura and we can go to 75 and we can play Van Rooyen. So that would give us Akshay, Kevin Yu, Nikolai Højgaard, Potgieter, Van Rooyen, Charlie Hoffman.
Or do you want Jesper?
No, I mean Hoffman will be more owned than Jesper.
All right, yeah, I'll put him in there. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to build a common lineup, not lineups that I like. Just like where I always find that step one that we try to do is get a sense of what people are going to do. And I'm finding that really difficult this week.
The thing is, there's just so many guys in the sevens that you can spread it out. I think one thing that we're not looking at yet that's going to pop up is the Akshay with their 9K. It's really hard to overlook Stevens, Jagger, Rogers, Rye, Hall, Kim, Hostler, and more. Those are all options that are going to get ownership. It'll be held in check on all of them because I don't think anyone's committing fully to anyone particular, maybe more on Patrick Rogers, things like that. We'll have to see. But I definitely think that range gets a lot of love where it's Akshay +1 and then drop down to those 7K guys. Because while we're saying it's a hard time figuring out who's going to be popular when we're building an optimal type lineup, people are absolutely going to be fine landing with some combination of those 7K guys we talked about. Springer makes it work. Like all these different things you can go to.
All right, let's try this. Let's try to build a good version of this. We want to play Akshay Stevens together. I think it's Springer, KH Lee, who I bet to win. I gave you a reason why I liked him earlier. After the show is over, you can always scroll back into the time codes and find out where I talk about certain guys, or just throw one of the things you can do. Quick tip here. If you sub to the Pat Mayo Experience on Apple or Spotify, and even on YouTube, you can like download the transcript of the episode. And sometimes the names are off, so it's tough. But if you just control F that, if there's a player you want to hear us talk about, you can jump directly to that from the transcript, if that's the way that you want to do it. ChatGPT and Grok on Twitter help out with that a lot too. Quick tip if you're ever trying to do quick research.
Yeah, I like that. The way you're starting this is also going to be different than most. I think because you land on an average of almost $7,400. That's what I'm saying, where I think that lineup still becomes more popular. Once you go to Springer and Lee, you can really get different here, because if most people going 10-9, like starting with a 10K guy and then going to a 9K guy, if most people are going 4-7K guys, when you go to Springer and KH Lee, who you're very comfortable with and we seem fine with, you can actually get to something like Knapp and Highsmith, where you only have one 7K in your lineup, and that actually projects just as good as the one we had up earlier.
And I think this is the way that you get different right here.
Yes. Yep.
And I'll take
most people going Akshay with a 9K or Kitayama with a 9K, wherever they end up going up top. Most people doing that are landing on the Van Royens, the Highsmith, whatever versions of the 7K guys that you like. So one of the ways to get different this week would be to play one 7K guy or none when you're building out like this, building something completely different. Because you could also then swap Knapp and Highsmith to one more 6K guy that you like, Pat, and be able to get up even higher than
the problem becomes, I don't know how many of those guys. So here's an interesting player, Vince Whaley.
Well, Schmidt and you.
Yeah, it could be Schmidt and you. That's why I had it initially. Vince Whaley, $7,100. He has not been playing well. He cut T32, T64, T72. So he's actually made the cut 3 times, then was cut in Phoenix. But his skill set is very interesting to me. He crushes off the tees, top 25 in this field in driving distance. And historically, over the past 2 years, dude pops on the greens. Like the amount of tournaments he has with like over 2.5 strokes gained putting, over 3.5 strokes gained putting, over 5 strokes putting is quite large. It's just at the moment, he's not putting great. Like he lost 2 at the Amex in only 2 rounds. He lost at the Sony, was barely above board, 0.2 at Farmers. In Phoenix, he actually gained 2.5 strokes putting, but just lost tee to green or across the board, which does happen with him from time to time because the irons have been a little bit off so far this year. But he's generally like he can be an okay iron player, but great on the greens. Basically, every case that I made for Taylor Moore, Vince Whaley is like the really jabroni version of Taylor Moore.
Yeah, and for a lot cheaper, $7,100. So I got no problem with it. It's not someone I see getting a bunch of ownership. I know the chat was talking about some of the other guys in that range. You mentioned Toasty earlier. I've seen some Mullinax love. Got her up there at 72. So Whaley would definitely be off the board at 71.
Or one of the things that we circled back to at the very beginning of the DraftKings part, we talked about the guys that did well, and I kind of chuckled that Bobby Mack was $7,000 in this tournament last year. That maybe that's an angle where you just look down and be like, man, that's what I'm doing with Rosner in a big way. But like Manacero's $7,100. Like he could be better than 98% of this field.
Right. So Manacero can go in and you can put Rosner in with him.
Could I
play the same angle?
Yeah, I mean, I am going to be playing a lot of Rosner, just personally. But for these lineups, I'm trying to think of like where people can end up. You know what? Thirsty Lawrence is $7,000 too. That's the play here. Go Thirsty Lawrence and Kevin Yu. Boom. There's the play. I'm not playing small. I think I've come down to it. I'm not going to play Smalley or Akshay in my lineups this week.
All right. And how much is Thirsty? 7?
7 even.
That's not bad. It's only 10 or so points off the original projection we had. So it's right in the range for PGA DFS. That's fine.
Yeah. And they're probably not treating Thirsty Lawrence like the guy who qualified for the Masters because he almost won the Open Championship.
That's where I was saying earlier, if you were putting like Manacero and you're putting Lawrence and Rosner as guys that just, aren't getting love, but should be, if you really thought about some of their strength of field stuff, you could probably fit a lot in.
Yeah.
So let's try that. If Manacero.
Let's go with the 3 euros. Rosner, Lawrence, Manacero.
Right.
And then I'll play the top of this lineup the way that I will probably be playing it in my lineups. Let's say I fade Akshay. I played Kitayama in that one lineup because it told me to, but just the guys that I like. I like Stevens. I think that playing Aaron Rye makes a lot of sense in this tournament because no one seems to be playing him. And I think he has the highest world ranking of any of these guys. So play him, and then you're still at 94. You can play Harry Hall, Michael Kim, Bo Hostler, Taylor Moore. Hell, I'll play Taylor Moore, take out Aaron Rye. I can play Steven Yeager. Maybe that dude can make a putt this week.
Yeah, you could play Rasmus in this too.
Could you?
If you went Rasmus, Moore, and Rye to round it out, that's a pretty nice setup.
Rasmus.
You got Steven, you'd have to drop down, yeah, but you go Rasmus, Rye, and Taylor Moore. If you're looking at guys that are, priced kind of where they are, but, could be a little bit more, that's fine. Nobody's playing Rasmus. That'd be a way to get different with it. Obviously, if you want to plug in Stevens, you get a little bit more money. You can change it up.
You could actually play Rogers over Rye in this lineup too if you wanted to. But Rosner, Lawrence, Mateo, Rye, Hogard, Taylor Moore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hate that.
What was the lineup you said earlier if we start with Stevens?
If we start with
would you go like Stevens, Rye, Michael Kim or something, or Stevens, Michael Kim, Moore?
Well, I think you're right that many people probably will not start with Stevens. So I think if I start with Stevens, I can just play all the chalky guys together. And it's not going to be.
Who do you like?
I bet Kevin Yu, Stevens. I'll just play the three guys that I bet: Stevens, Michael Kim, Kevin Yu, and then I could even take Nikolai. I think if I can finagle this properly, get to Rosner and Springer, I think is the move. Yep, that works out perfectly. Boom. Stevens, Michael Kim, Kevin Yu, Nikolai Højgaard, Rosner with Hayden Springer.
Rosner with Springer. Let me see here how this projects. Rosner
probably pretty poorly.
Well, it's fine. But
they probably have average projection of Antoine Rosner like way lower than Chan Kim, and those guys aren't even like comparable in terms of actual talent. And Chan Kim might beat Rosner this week. I don't know, but if we're talking about success, quality of play, strength of field, and success rate overall, like Rosner's been way better.
Yeah, this type of build can't be popular this week. 2 9s, 2 8s, one. You still only have one 7K guy in it with Rosner, but you get Nikolai Højgaard and you get Kevin Yu and Sam Stevens, Michael Kim. These are definitely the types of builds that could end up being at the top. And then even this is also too, Pat, the type of build where we talked about leaving money on the table. Most people are going to go with a Akshay lineup and then just drop Akshay down to somebody in the 9Ks. This is where you could say, okay, Kevin Yu is going to be popular. I'm not playing Smalley there anyway. I'm fine with Nikolai. Can I just take Kevin Yu down to, I don't know, whoever you like, Charlie Hoffman. You like, it's not even that far off in projection or anything. And you leave $1,200 on the table and you just change your build completely, but you didn't upgrade Stevens to Bhatia like everybody else will.
Let's see. Internationals have won 6 of 7 tournaments so far this year. Thanks. I don't pay attention to golf. I had never heard that before. Great contribution to the show. Scotty, no offense, but I hope you're wrong on Smalley. I have a lot of them. Well, Scotty, that's why I'm not playing him because everyone has a lot of them. And you really think Alex Smalley's that fucking good? I hope he wins for you then. That'd be great. People cash their outrights. I lose on that every week anyway. If I'm going to play this game, the DraftKings game, why would I play the one loser who never does really anything that everyone else is playing?
I'm just looking at some of the other comments here too. Some good ones in there. There is some good questions, but not great comments.
All right. Well, let's do. Yeah. The comments are tough, but let's throw that out right now. We'll give a 5-minute warning on the question and answer. If you do have legitimate DraftKings questions, betting questions, whatever it is, Mexico Open questions, you can load those in right now, and that's where Tambo and I will draw from instead of going through the entire chat. So even if you've asked it earlier, please ask it again. In the meantime, you smash the like, you sub to the channel because you got to be sub to the channel if you want to ask them questions. And sub to the Mayo Media newsletter. Code Mayo at Underdog. Get those bonus funds, and I'll have my rankings for major season best ball coming out sometime soon. And if you're watching on X right now, please share this around. That would be just tremendously helpful. So I really appreciate it. People are starting to figure out that we do go live every Wednesday morning now, Tambo. It's good. We're seeing the viewership grow every week.
Yeah, that's what we want. So I love it. This has been a good time. I like the setup of it, and still working through it, but there's some good builds that we find here. A lot of people like the lineup building segment of the show.
Scotty asks weather thoughts beyond the ones that I gave during the weather segment. None.
What else?
What are your thoughts on the weather, Tambo?
Oh, I've got none. I want to know what else you want to build. I'm looking here at the chart. I'm trying to come up with other builds just to see if there's anything else while we wait on these questions. But it definitely looks to me as though the 7K range is just going to get peppered in plenty of lineups. So any lineups that feature 2 or less 7K guys should naturally be unique this week.
Could you? I know that you won't. Let's say I want to start lineups with Michael Kim.
It just, I don't know if it's that far off from what we looked at earlier, but in the sense of you can just kind of play what you want after that. So for, you, Knapp, you still have 7,800. You're just going to get to end in a different place than others. But even if you went Rosner to boost it up, you end up getting somewhere in this range. Who was the other guy you liked in the sevens? Was there somebody in the upper sevens? I've got Nikolai in here for you.
I just said that I thought that Hoffman would be popular. I can play Thorbjornsen if I want to. Just Michael Kim, Taylor Moore, Jake Knapp, Nikolai, Rosner, Michael Thorbjornsen. Like, it's not that different than the lineup that we started with Sam Stevens.
Yeah, you just need that range to be the one to come through it. It looks like if you change Knapp to you could run Kim, you, Moore, Rosner, Nikolai, Hoffman, and that's fine.
Yeah, that works.
998877. It's just a different way to build it. And again, the $7,600 guy can be a 7K. Hoffman can be Schmidt. It doesn't matter. They're all the same. It's how they actually shake out. We'll have to wait and see. But if you wanted to play Schmidt there instead of Hoffman, because I really don't like the Hoffman talk, like personally, I don't. It's basically the exact same projection, or maybe even better, to play Schmidt and leave $600 on the table.
Or play KH Lee, who I like, and then get rid of Nikolai, and then you get back up to Smalley or Knapp if you want to. And now you go 9-9, high 8, 7-6.
Yes. Another way just to get different. That's how you're going to do it this week. At the end of the day, it's mostly going to be spread out after a lot of these guys at the top. And the top is just going to be dictated by the steam. I think Akshay gets steamed up even more than we think, just because of what we talked about. Perfect storm of nobody likes Kitayama or Rasmus. And while they should be getting some ownership, and we'll get some of the sharper ownership where people are like, well, if they're not going to be owned, let me just hop on there. They'll get some, but it still leads to a lot more casuals and people that are listening to shows and whatnot playing Bhatia. And then in the 9Ks, it could end up being Patrick Rogers playing good right now, history, all that stuff. I know somebody in the chat said he's playing 7 weeks in a row. Another just one of the dumbest narratives in all sports. Yeah, he just played. The narrative last week was he played 6 in a row and then came third, or 5 in a row and came third. It's until when he has a bad week, you'll say it's because of that. When he has a good week, you'll say it's because of that. Like, it doesn't matter. It's always the same thing.
I love that. I love that very much. The only one I wanted to, like, I know I spoke about Griot earlier and just what his price was last year. Feels like I just don't know where his game is at, is the problem with Griot right now. He's been objectively bad so far this year. Cut, T76.
It's a battle between the pricing factor in your mind, because if Griot has a good week, okay, great. And it was only 7K to find out. So that's part of it. But it feels to me, at least, way more. And yeah, you got to pay for this, but it feels way more like Kitayama or Rasmus. And I know that people are, well, they're priced up there. No wonder. I get it. I'm just saying it feels to me way more like one of those guys that everybody thinks sucks, breaks out and gets the job done, because why wouldn't they? They're one of the favorites in the field. Doesn't matter what the recent form is before a guy like Griot breaks out of the slump and gets it done, but at least you got the price breakdown. Do you think about that type of stuff, or do you have any thoughts just around mixing it up that way?
Not especially. I was just more locked in on trying to figure out what's wrong with Griot and like why I won't be using him this week, and like the type of guys that I want to use, just as more of an overall view of skill sets. When Griot runs hot, like, he's good at U.S. Opens. Why is he good at U.S. Opens? He's not very long off the tee, but he's so accurate. He always gains strokes off the tee. It's a lot like old school Francesco Molinari, who I believe is he in the field this week? Molly? Oh yeah, there he is. He's down at $6,400. But that used to be his whole jam. Like, he was so good tee to green. Obviously, Griot's not good tee to green because he sucks at chipping. But he used to be so good and hit so many fairways, kind of like how Akshay is right now. Like, Akshay doesn't hit the ball 390 off the tee. He's not putt guider, but he hits so many fairways and keeps himself in play. He sets himself up well and hits his long irons well. That's what Griot would be doing well, right? So with Griot, right now, he's not driving the ball well. He's not hitting his long irons well. Could he ever get that back? Sure. Maybe it's this week, but there's nothing to indicate that would happen right now.
Yeah. John Paul Shaughnessy in the chat.
Oh,
the Griot thoughts.
What's your Griot thought, Paul? Oh, you said thoughts on Griot.
Yeah. He was like number 2 in my model.
He put the breakdown in there. He said good history at comp course in Minnesota and decent history in Mexico.
What did you say, Tabo?
I was just reading the comments. He asked the question, but he did a question and a comment. Is that banned for life or is that still good? Are we good with that?
It'd be tough to ban Paul because they could just unban himself pretty quickly.
Damn. All right, it was worth a shot. Love you, Paul. But I will say that, at least he added something there that said, seems like only Raza, I assume he plays them every week. Yes, is on him. Look into it, bro. And then, Panamania, Tim Peterson in the chat. Is it Panamania week? And we didn't even talk about him. He's actually at an interesting price point on the board. Norgard, by the way, we've talked a lot about Hogards, but Norgard and Pan, even Thorbjorn Olsen, he's right there. Those three guys are not getting talked about at all. And they're all right in the mix as well, squeezed in between Nikolai, the guys below him, and then Knapp and the guys above him.
People want to play Norgard. I just don't think that they can fit him in lineups.
What does it look like if you use all three of those guys? Olsen, Pan, Norgard.
I'm not using Olsen. I don't even want to go
all
there.
right, we'll leave him out. We'll leave him out. Fine,
I'll use Thorbjornsson instead. Instead of using Thorbjorn Olesen, we'll use Michael Thorbjornsson instead. And then we'll use Norgard. And who was the other one? The Panamaniac?
Yeah, that's all I was trying to figure out, if you could do that.
Pan? Do we have a Pan-Pam situation on our hands? Pan,
I got a good one here.
Pan is very much like Ben Griffin and Aaron Rye to me, but of the 8,000s, where people would want to play him, but they're like, there's better guys around him. I'll use those guys instead.
This is the best projected yet. And it's some of the guys you've mentioned throughout the show. Take out Thor for a second. Put in your boy Rosner instead.
Ooh, Roz.
And then you can round it out with Nikolai, Akshay, and Highsmith.
Or, really? Akshay and Highsmith? Or you could go Taylor Moore, Kevin Yu.
Could do that.
Which I think
Taylor Moore, Kevin Yu.
And 2v2, I think I like that better than Akshay and Highsmith.
Yeah, this has to be a different build, at least from what people are doing. And even Kevin Yu could be Ben Griffin as well. So yeah, those are interesting ways to look at it. But I think, the 9, 3, or 4, 8K. I don't think anyone's playing 4, 8K guys. So that'd be another way to look at it too.
Okay. Let's get to this question and answer period. I said that I would get to it, so let's get to it. I'll scan the chat. If you have any more questions, keep piling those in. Smash like and share the show around. Make sure you're subbed to Mayo Media on YouTube in order to ask yo questions. All right, Jagger or Michael Kim? Got to go with my guy, Michael Kim.
Yeah, I like Jagger better, but I'm a Jagger guy, so that's obvious.
Thoughts on Custy Gerard this week? Ryan Gerard seems like a good course fit. Being priced in the 7K range scares me. Listen, I think you could just use anyone you want in the 7K range as long as they're like not the two most popular guys. Pick your poison. There's a reason that these guys are down here.
He's got to have a good week though, because didn't he have a good Cognizant last year?
Did he?
Which I think is, we've played this long enough to see it happen where he'll have an okay week or do good this week. Everyone will pile on him next week as chalk. I'd have to look it up, but I could have swore. But yeah, he played well at the Farmers. That's what people are talking about him for. He's been fine. But let me try and look that up while you go to the next question. I thought that was that's how I was looking at it, like the look ahead spot for a guy like him. What did he do last year?
What is wrong with Davis Riley, and is he worth putting in a lineup? So here's the problem with Davis Riley right now. He's losing approximately 2 strokes per round on approach. That is not great. That's not making you any cuts. He's just broken. Although he's weird because he beat Scotty Scheffler by 4 strokes, paired with Scheffler at Colonial last year to win a tournament. He almost won Valspar the year before that. Like there's something with him. If he's in contention, he could get there. But that sounds like a guy that you bet outright and never sniff near your DraftKings lineup.
Build the stack this week. Play Jagger and Davis Riley, the Scotty Scheffler killers, the guys that took him down last year. But it was with Ryan Gerard. It actually, we've got to date it back to the 2023 when it was still the Honda, Pat, where Ryan Gerard finished 4th place. So should be a good week for him, coming off of 15th at the Farmers. Comes out here, has a good week, and then fails everybody next week when they all play him at the Honda or at the Cognizant now, but Honda.
Are you fading 10K players in single entry? I mean, I don't know. I haven't filled out my lineup yet for that. I usually
All tons of lineups that don't have 10K guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, probably if I'm going to fade Akshay, I might as well just fade the entire 10K range and start with Sam Stevens.
I don't mind that at all. I think you could start a lineup with Sam Stevens for sure.
Any love with Thorbjorn Olesen at $8,200? I don't have a lot of love for Thorbjorn Olesen at $8,200. No.
Not really. The guys around him is what I like a lot more. We just talked about, CT Pan, Norgard, some of those guys. Even if you want different plays in the same spot, same range, I do think more gravitate to Sig, Nikolai, Lauer, Knapp, Smalley, Yu. So those guys are going overlooked. Olesen is as well, but I would prefer the two guys above him at similar ownership.
With all the guys basically being the same golfer below $7,900, do we just play the leverage game? I say yes.
Yes.
The problem is identifying who we have to fade.
The Steam tonight, our guy DJ will have it covered over on the Ship It Nation YouTube station. He'll have all the Steam plays tonight on the 7K range, and he'll know who's going up, the last minute. And it could be some guys you don't expect. It could end up being a Matt Wallace, a Fishburne. Jesper might get a little bit of love by the end of the day. The Bridgmans and Highsmiths of the world. We'll have to wait and see. Gotterup, who you mentioned earlier. You just never know. It's kind of right now people are leaning with it, but I just don't see any of them getting to the 12 to 15% range, really. So it's tough.
Next one. Favorite between Manacero, Frankie Cappin, or Sappin, as he prefers to be called, which I will not call him. I'll call him Cappin. And Trey Mullenix. I like Manacero.
Yeah, I guess we played him. Frankie was the only other guy I thought of. We didn't mention him earlier, but everyone loved him recently. And then now nobody wants him. So maybe that's a reason to do it. But again, in that range, there's just so many options that you can get to. And you made a pretty good case for old Mateo Manacero there. So I'll side with you on this one, Pat.
You mentioned Tim's question earlier. Is it the week to play the Panimal? We went over that. CT Pan. I do think he falls in a nice price range. I think he's probably a pretty good leverage play in that $8,000 range. Although Norgard Moeller, depending on what site you look at him, he'll be Nicholas Norgard. At some sites, he'll be Nicholas Moeller. Some sites, he'll be Nicholas Norgard Moeller. So just know that they're all the same guy. That he needs to figure that out. Nikolai Smith is what we'll be calling him next year when he gets his name in the proper API. But I think that he goes overlooked because he's hard to fit in. Just that price range, if you're not Nikolai Højgaard, I think it's going to be difficult for people to jam too many guys from that range in because Smalley's going to be so popular. Yu's going to be so popular. Then below that, you got Nikolai, that all those guys in between are just a tough ask.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You described it perfectly.
Who is this guy? He talks way too fast. Well, maybe you're too fucking slow. Have you thought about that? Maybe you shouldn't be putting your money online and wagering on it. Maybe you're too big of a fucking moron to figure that out. Log off, go get some help.
Do you think he's talking about you or me?
I don't know. I don't care.
Who talks faster? Do you think? I wonder who talks
Maybe
faster.
he can't read. Maybe he can't read. That's a problem. Why would he need to be able to read for this?
He should take your transcript tips from earlier using Grok or ChatGPT or something. He could just get right to the parts he wants.
There we go. Are you guys hand building lineups? I assume everyone just 50 maxes with their model uploaded. Yeah, I'm not hand building them all. We're not that. There's a show. This guy's a fucking tool. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. First time, last time, huh? Tuning into the Pat Mayo experience. Yeah, that's going to be our show next week. I'm going to hit optimize, export, upload. See you next time. Fucking jabroni.
He said, damn, brother.
Get a fucking life. Get some fucking help.
I don't know if it warranted all of that. He said,
oh, it warranted. Oh, this guy is the very first time. How about this? You get some fucking help. You figure out your goddamn life. Then you come back and stop being a fucking moron. Got it?
Oh, man.
You got it?
The best is the follows.
Pat in a mood today? You fuck off too, pal. I wasn't in a mood, and now I'm in a goddamn mood. And since you mentioned it, get your tickets to the live show because I can do this to you in person. I might get knocked out doing it in person, but here I am. It's not like I'm going to stop doing it. If you want to be banned for life, you make the comment again, motherfucker. We're having
I want to see that at the live show. Sending somebody
Pat,
out.
That's the VIP package. You can punch Pat in the face as hard as you want for $1,000. I've been punched. I've been punched in the face enough. I can take it. I just need my teeth.
$1,000 may do numbers. You need to up the price.
I got to up the price. Okay, $10,000 to punch me in the face.
Yeah, $1,000. You might have a lot of signups for that one.
Let's see. I think that's it. Wacky Valimaki disrespect. You can't use the nickname that I give someone and say that I'm disrespecting him. That means you only know who he is through me, pal. Fuck off.
Can we build that one? Let's see if a couple more questions file in. We got a few minutes here. Let's build Michael Kim.
I can't build anymore. I stopped the screen share.
Oh, come on. Who's other guy? Your guys. If you were saying your guys, who else do we got in this field?
Oh,
I'll tell. Oh, Rico. Rico goes into this.
Yeah, Rico's been bad, man.
He's your guy, though. Who else is your guy? Nikolai is your guy, too, for sure.
Nikolai?
Yeah, you do enough talking about him that you like him.
I do. Well, I just like him versus Rasmus. I think, they are twins. They're very much the same guy.
All right. And these aren't your guys, but it's from your conversation today. It rounds it out. It finishes out the Sam Stevens starting point with Taylor Moore. So it's 3-9Ks. It's Sam Stevens, Michael Kim, Taylor Moore, rounded out with Nikolai, Rico, and Valimaki to end it off. That's the finishing touch.
I like it. Does it project well?
No, it definitely does not.
That's fine. That's probably better for this. That's what you do this week. That's going to be the show. We're going to optimize our lineups, reverse projected points, and play all those ones.
It's the way, man. It's like opposite of NBA. Start 40 points off the optimal and just run it. In NBA, you want to be as close to it as possible without getting too chalky. In PGA DFS, just start 50 points off. Go from there.
There we are. All right. FantasyNational.com/Mayo get you 20% off. And as I mentioned before, once the show ends and the live chat ends and you have the actual comment section, you give me your favorite play from below $7,000 to get yourself in a draw for a free annual membership. You can do that on Spotify and you can do that on Apple Podcasts as well, as long as you sub to the Pat Mayo Experience on YouTube or those platforms. All right. Smash a like on the way out. And I want to hear from you. If you're a winner, if you're a loser, don't want to ever hear from me again, because I am already dealing with my own losses. I don't need to feel doubly as bad that other people are losing. But if you're a winner, that makes me happy. And I'm sure it'll make you happy too. Tambo, shipitnation.com. What do you guys got going on tonight? Live stream with James?
Yep, live stream with James. A lot of good stuff going on over the next week. We've got a huge announcement coming up probably as early as Monday, so stay tuned for that. The Mastermind program, still working on that. shipitnation.com/mastermind. You can use code MAYO to get 35% off and check that out. But yeah, lots of good things going on, man. And this is a lot of fun. I think Rob is looking for the link for the $1,000 sign up for the live show to punch you in the face right now. It's perfect.
Nah, that guy doesn't have the fucking guts. He can barely string to. He wouldn't be able to. He probably missed it when I said it because I talked too fast for him.
That's possible too.
And if you're one of these assholes listening or watching at 1.5 speed, fuck you. I hate you. Hate you so much. It's not how the show is produced. You listen to Pat and Tambo in real time. I had someone come up to me one day. They were just like, man, your voice is so different. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I speak into a pretty good microphone. The audio is actually very good on this show. Apparently, except for at the beginning when YouTube was fucking it up. But they were like, no, I listened to you at 1 or 2 speed. It's like, well, of course I don't sound like a goddamn chipmunk in real life, you moron.
I get told the opposite. They're like, you basically sound like 1.5x in regular time. And so it's hard to put you past 1.5x, even though I like listening to everything in 2x, they say. So that's why I said, who's he talking about? Because sometimes people give me shit for talking too fast or just running off on random rants.
Like I said, and if you need to power through a research type thing, maybe the way to do it is to use that transcript, Control F, and then go along with it. That's usually the play.
Yeah, everything's upgrading these days for the AI stuff. I just got my new iPhone update and it now can summarize emails if I wanted to. So the new softwares, man, they're all updating to have this additional AI coverage. It's perfect.
All right, friends, good luck this week at the Mexico Open. My cheat sheet will be released for free. It'll be in an X article and the Mayo Media Substack, which is completely free. That link is down in the description. I'll send that out around probably 5, 6, 7 p.m. tonight once I get around to doing it, depending on what time my kids go to bed. All right, thank you all for watching. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.